Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. So right away I have awesome news for Ukrainian armed forces and for supporters of Ukraine and free world. Ukraine again went on a counterattack not far away from Pokrovsk, but it's not the only direction where Ukraine is successful. So step by step we're gonna check out really awesome news for today, showing that Ukraine is getting more ground and Russia starts to struggle really hard. As you can see here, we have a new blue region, recently liberated Ukrainian territory, the village of Kotlene. That village is really important from the tactical perspective because it opens the way out to cut this very important road on the north, plus there is a railroad coming through Kotlene. So let's zoom into this story. It was yesterday and it is today. That's what I call counteroffensive because it was the counter maneuver from the Ukrainian army from two of the directions to compensate Russian attacks, which were quite limited in this area. Roughly 2 weeks ago, Ukraine liberated this northern bridgehead, and from this one, Ukraine started one more assault. And as you can see, the Russian army is struggling in Pokrovsk direction. And there is also now the risk for the Russian armed forces in this hump because Ukraine will continue to advance from both of the directions. Two may play this game. I mean advancing from two of the vectors, cutting forces. In this particular case, the forces of the Russian army. So I expected this move actually from Ukraine, and I expect even more because Ukraine may go on attack towards this direction to the south. And there Ukraine also attacks towards Pishana. You can see that the vast part of this village was liberated by Ukrainian armed forces. So in general, I'm very positive about Pokrovsk. I'm definitely surprised that Russia wasn't able to occupy Pokrovsk, and now Ukraine takes the advantage. Ukraine attacks, as you can see, in many of the directions here. It's because Pokrovsk itself is kind of the important place, it's the logistics center. Yeah, I understand that Ukraine could have prepared for defense better, but we have what we have. Nevertheless, now Ukraine takes initiative against the Russian army. So absolutely great, fantastic news, but let's check out also the other sources and analytics which will tell us the bigger picture. Well guys, what can I say? You can see this map. According to the Micro 73 analytic, and his data is usually correct, Ukraine went on counterattack, a massive one, in Toretsk direction, right towards Toretsk town. Ukrainian armored vehicles were even spotted in a central part of the settlement. Ukraine uses mostly drones, and unfortunately, yes, because Ukraine attacks, in this case, there were several of the vehicle losses for Ukrainian army. You know, Russia has drones as well, but so far they were not able to create a robust bridgehead in Toretsk town. So in a way, Ukraine uses this situation to target Russian positions and even advance. And you know guys, we also have the recent confirmation from the NOAF reports. They say that definitely Ukraine gained more ground in Toretsk, repelling Russian armed forces from the part of the city. Well, roughly 10 days ago, Russians already say that they've occupied Toretsk fully, and the situation turned upside down for them there. So yeah, if we zoom into the interactive map, you can see lots and lots of the Ukrainian drones and vehicles out there, but Ukraine unfortunately also has losses. Like for example, this tank is geolocated, and yes, unfortunately it's been confirmed that Ukraine lost one of the tanks, but battle continues. And yes, the Ukrainian forces were spotted even here in a very central part of this town. There are two of the big attack vectors performed by Ukrainian army. And about Kotlene, yes, we have the confirmation that Ukrainian armed forces liberated this very important village. Just look at it. Without occupying Kotlene, Russians are just unable to move northbound to cut this very important supply road for Ukraine towards Pokrovsk. So yes, for now Ukraine still has this road under control and supplies are going there to Pokrovsk. That's why Ukraine is so successful in defending Pokrovsk settlement. But you know what guys, Russia also took some territories under their control. We're speaking about Kursk region. So it was the day before yesterday, and it is yesterday Russians moved towards Pogrebki. They're not fully occupied this village, but they're very close to do so. I guess Ukraine will concentrate mostly on protecting this village and the nearby road, and later on Ukraine will concentrate just on defending Sudzha. While Russia has the intention to return back control over all of the Kursk Kursk region, but so far they're not successful. Like, they have advantage there over Ukrainian army, but still in some of the points of the Kursk front lines, Ukrainian army has an advantage, especially in Sudzha region. So how Donald Trump says, Russia may destroy Ukraine at any moment, they just don't want to do so. Well, Ukraine entered Kursk more than 6 months ago and still Russians are failing there. Yes, even protecting their own land. So what to say about Ukraine? By the way, should we tell about Trump in this video? Because he's a usual newsmaker for Ukraine? Well, I guess yes, because he is, after all, a president of the United States of America. For me, he's a joke, but he's United States main official. And today we're gonna review more cringe coming from that particular politician. But first of all, for us, a Ukrainian topic is more interesting. This video of the Russian air defense operation was filmed in Tuapse port, the port which Russia uses to export their oil products. If we go to this map, you can see this is Crimea and this is the Russian original territory. The port of Novorossiysk is the biggest one for the Russian export, but also Tuapse is very important because it has tremendous oil logistics. And it's not the first time that Ukraine hits this port. There were ground kabooms report, and for this hour the operation of the port completely ceased. Yeah, Russia may renew it in the coming days, but it already created significant damage for the Russian export capabilities. By the way, my friends, if you want to support the job that I do here on YouTube, you may join my Patreon. I'll put the link for my Patreon page right in the video description below. Thank you so much for supporting my motivation. Oh boy, Russian army continue to use donkeys or mules to deliver their supplies to the front lines. For example, this particular mule carries at least 4 of the mortar mines. It's kind of sad picture actually, because after all it's an animal, it's not guilty, but Russia uses those donkeys on the front lines. That's why donkeys also become targets for Ukrainian FPV drones, which I don't honestly like, but the Ukrainian army has no other choice. Otherwise Russians would just use those shells to strike our positions, our soldiers. So yes, unfortunately Ukraine has to kaput the donkeys as well as the Russians, but only the Russian army is to blame about it because they brought those animals to the front lines. Ukraine didn't do it to those poor animals. And you know what? Russians also started to use horses on the front lines. Well, actually during the First World War and the Second one even, horses were the most popular for the transport. Well, it seems like Russians also try to renew this tradition, but it means also that they're in lack of the traditional ways of the transportation of their army, especially if we speak about supplies. For the meat attacks, well, Russians do have some of the BTRs and BMPs and tanks because they're producing those. So what they do, they gather the forces and they send those to attack. Ukraine kaputs those as usually, and then there is some gap, some period of the time, then Russia again gathers their forces for the next wave. But for supplies, well, Russia is definitely in lack of the military transport. That's why they use everything: civilian vehicles, animals. And you know, guys, with this state of the Russian army, I don't really think that Russia possesses a threat for European Union countries or NATO countries in a close perspective. But after some years, yes, if the war in Ukraine is over, Russia might accumulate some of the reinforcements to restart the war in Ukraine or to even attack, for example, Baltic countries like Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. Poland, I don't think so, because Polish army is strong. Poland invests a lot and Poland has kind of the large population compared to Baltic neighbors. Plus, Russian army is also in lack of the basic equipment. They use backpacks from the food delivery organizations, like for example Yandex Food, which is very popular in Russia. In West, we have analogs of Glovo, Bolt, Uber Eats. Even though China supplies Russian army with military gear, but it's not enough. And again, we say that Russian army is divided into 2 main armies. One, more massive, is just mid-wave army with the soldiers who are in lack of the experience, who went there because they want money and who went there just to avoid the Russian prison. And the other army, the Russian professional army, like paratroopers, Marines, ex-Wagner soldiers. Well, they're really capable, but there are just few of those compared to this trash Russian army, which is mostly used for the straightforward meat assaults. An advertisement of the Russian soldier of the German-made drones. He was lucky to be evacuated from the front lines. He obtained his wounds and after all disability after what he describes as the strike of the German drone. Well, I guess German drones are kind of effective. But you know, guys, in most of the cases, Russia tries not to evacuate their soldiers who are severely wounded. In many of the stories which Russian soldiers publish themselves, they obtain the orders to kaput their fellows who receive severe wounds. So yeah, this one is damn lucky, and he will continue to suck the funds from the Russian budget till the rest of his disabled life. Disabled because of his stupidity, because Russian soldiers go there because they're volunteers. Mobilized soldiers were mobilized long time ago, but also they had the option to say no, but instead they went to Ukraine, and that's the outcome. And guess how many of those Russian soldiers out there in Russia disabled who lost their previous lives completely, and in Russian realities they basically ruined their lives because they will not have good jobs, they're just outcast, and the vast part of the Russian society do not perceive them as defenders. For them they're also occupiers who go to Ukraine to earn funds by zeroing random people, Ukrainians. So yeah, this guy got what he fully deserved. Well, maybe he deserved even worse after what Russian army is doing in Ukraine. But rhetorics even of Russian propaganda changes a little. I was actually surprised to see this Russian propaganda video on their channels. I'll just describe you of what is happening there. So here's the father, he's in a kitchen, he's a usual Russian. He is frustrated of why Russian army is so slow, why they're not winning. He watches the news and complains probably to his wife or whoever she is. Then this lady gives a guy a small present for the 23rd of February. It's the day of the defender of the Russian army. Actually, it was the day of the defender of the Soviet army as well. So a guy was kind of frustrated of why Russian army is not moving full scale on attack, and he wrote about it in the comments in a local Telegram channel of the Russian Z Patriot community. But then we see a couple of the Russian soldiers who are under heavy Ukrainian artillery strike. So they're sitting there in the cover, and somehow this lady soldier shows to his fellow the comment that was posted by that elderly person in his kitchen. We understand that the Russian grandpa name is Alexei, and he says, "How long can you hide? Push those ho-hos till Lviv city." So Russian soldiers were quite frustrated with that comment because they understood that Russian people do not understand the reality on the front lines, but the Ukrainian god of artillery decided to finish their suffering. And yes, they're for sure not able to go to Lviv city any longer. Probably the idea of this Russian propaganda video was to show to the Russian society that it's definitely hard on the front lines, and it's like stupid to say that go for victory. So something is changing in the Russian informational field. Like even the Russian propagandist Solovyov, the head of the Russian propaganda, one of the leaders of it, said a couple of weeks ago that the war should be over, and who calls Russia to go for full-scale attacks is a stupid one because Russia suffers losses. And that is what I'm telling you for a very long time, that with the territorial gains only, but at the same time losing its own forces, Russian army cannot win. So yeah, there is a light change of this Russian propaganda, but still it's not very significant. Maybe after all they will understand that they're just unable to win in this war. Alright, Russian military bloggers are really frustrated because their legendary General Popov, a commander of the Russian paratroop divisions, is going to face a jail term. They're trying to send General Popov to jail again. There are more and more scandals in the case, Russian Z bloggers write. Guys, General Popov is definitely one of those few talented Russian generals who was actually able to stop the Ukrainian counteroffensive back in 2023 on the south. Without his command, Russians would lose that operation. But after all, he started to criticize the Russian main army command together with higher Russian political elite, and that's why he was accused for some of the corruption schemes, for bribes, and was arrested, put in jail for several months. Well, later on he was released on probation, but now Russia wants to lock him back again. And he is really famous among the Russian soldiers because he is not doing those mid-wave attacks, or he did it very rarely, and he also supported General Surovikin, who supported Prigozhin, so maybe Russian elite saw a threat for itself in the face of this really successful general. So you can see how the Russian army cancels its own positive evolution by jailing competent commanders just because they say the realities on the front lines. You might recall legendary Shoigu Gerasimov wears ammunition, so those who tell truth, they're usually caputed or jailed. Here's the quote from the well-known Russian military propagandist Sladkov. The version that General Popov is a thief and a traitor has no any evidence and it's not real. Thank you, General Popov, for everything you've done to the Russian army. Officers and soldiers under your command did everything to repel Ukrainian counteroffensive in Zaporizhia region. Be brave and stay a proud Russian officer, even in the Russian prison. Oh, my lovely Russia, you are not changing at all. Yeah, that's why I subscribe for some of the Z channels and Russian propagandists, because, yeah, sometimes they say the things as they are, not even hiding their sad emotions. And tell me, my friends, is the Russian army really winning this war? Alright, and now let's get closer to political news. Russia offered United States of America a deal for minerals in Ukrainian territory it seized, so occupied territory, and from that one Russia is going to sell some of the minerals to United States. Would the United States accept that deal? I think yes. Trump doesn't care. From what he's saying, he is just a greedy, narcissist bastard. Guys, if you have the other opinion and you love Donald Trump, I don't honestly care. I have my own opinion, which I share on this channel, and I think that my opinion is being supported by many people around the world, including the great part of Americans, who say that they're just ashamed of their president and he's just a king of cringe. Like, I'm gonna show you today some of the cringe stuff from Donald Trump, but anyways, here I want to talk about mainly Russia, about those news. Honestly, guys, I have the feeling that we are living in some sort of the parallel reality, where Russia said before that United States of America is their greatest enemy, together with West, like global West. But anyways, for Putin, America is leading there. It controls the global West. And the aim of this very bad America is to conquer Russia, to enslave the country and just dig resources from Russia. That's the reality of this cruel capitalism. They don't care about Russian culture, Russian history, and Putin is very sensitive for the Russian history. But here, with this deal, Putin himself sells Russians to West like resources. You know, Russians were definitely dying for those new regions of Russia. That's what they put in the Russian constitution. So from the legislation perspective, there is no difference between Moscow region or, for example, Donetsk region, which is partially under Ukrainian control. That's why Russian soldiers are fighting there, for the future of the Russian, for prosperity of Russia. But here Putin sells everything to West. According to Russian constitution, and by the way, the Ukrainian one, everything which is underground, so minerals, oil, coal, and so on, belongs to citizens. However, there are some of the corporations created, especially in Russia, which took all of the Soviet-made infrastructure, they built also new facilities, and they pump and dig everything from the ground, not sharing a penny with Russians. So here we see a cruel reality for the Russian soldiers. They fight there for a deal, for Putin to make a deal with Trump, sharing the Russian resources, because yes, according to Russians, the occupied regions are the territory of Russia. So for me, this situation, it is hilarious. Something that I would say would never happen, but it is happening. I think that Putin is doing this move just because he heard about the deal between United States of America and Ukraine, a possible deal, but as we know from the recent news, Zelensky will visit United States of America, he will meet with Trump, probably they'll sign some sort of the agreement. However, Zelensky said today that they will not pay any sort of the compensation for the previously delivered weapons because it was the previous agreement, it was granted for Ukraine. Now, Trump, if you want resources, give us more weaponry and you'll have your minerals. From what I see, it's the only option for Ukraine to continue to receive the military support from the United States of America, but even this card may not play in this game because Trump is really not interested in supporting Ukraine. He's playing in the Russian team and here we see the confirmation of it. So there was the resolution that condemns the Russian attack on Ukraine. It's been released regularly, usually once a year, to show the solidarity of the world around Ukraine and how they condemn the Russian aggression. So Russia was put in the resolution as usual as an aggressor country. Well, in general, resolution was supported and taken by majority of the countries, but the United States of America voted against it, so against recognition that Russia is the aggressor country who started this war in Ukraine. Here you can see it, a United States of America against. Who also voted against it? Well, countries like North Korea, Russia, Belarus, kind of the great company for the modern-day United States of America. Well, even China was neutral towards that resolution and Turkey supported it, as well as Serbia, by the way. Well, later on, Serbian president told that it was done by mistake, maybe we pushed the wrong button, but the fact is the fact, they voted for it. Also, guys, this is kind of frustrated that Israel voted against it as well, probably supporting the United States of America here. I remember how Ukrainians condemned the attack by Hamas on Israel. Even I stated about it in my videos. But Israel representative in the United Nations didn't condemn the Russian attack on Ukraine. Kind of strange, isn't it? Israelis out there, do you support it or not?
And Father God, we give you the glory and the honor. Thank you, God, for President Trump.
Thank you, God, for President Trump. Oh my God, guys, he is really a king. Trump is a king of cringe as well as his entire team. I have no words. I think it's beyond narcissism or egoism or something like that. He's sick, he needs help. But apparently the majority of the United States citizens did like to see that as their president. Alright, we now all have to live with that man as a leader of the Democrat. Can we call a United States a democracy with that leading or ruling the country? Well, in the conference, Trump said lots of the Delulu stuff, also about Ukraine, that Ukraine will never be accepted in NATO, because according to Trump, it was a trigger for Russia to start this war. Not just because Russia wanted to conquer Ukraine, and not only, but because Ukraine wanted to go to NATO. Guys, with this level of competence, I am sure that Donald Trump will not be able to stop the war in Ukraine, sadly. He will make it even worse, potentially spreading the war to the other countries. It is not the war between Ukraine and Russia, it's the war between democracies and autocracies. There's some news from the Southeast Asia and China, which intensifies their provocations against Taiwan, Philippines and Vietnam even. And this Delulu man say today that the United States is not sure whether they should provide guarantees for their allies in Taiwan, for example, or Ukraine.
Look, yeah. See that?
Trump was right about everything. Man, if Donald Trump's ass was slapped every time he said lies, he wouldn't have any ass left a long time ago. Yeah, definitely, Trump was right about everything. And this AI-generated video Donald Trump published on his Truth Social. It says about Gaza Strip and how it might change in the coming years. So from war and poverty it will turn to the next Dubai. A young Elon Musk and skinny Elon Musk will eat something there. Trump's balloon hat, he looks like Kim Jong-un there, just with different hairstyle. What? I didn't pay attention the first time I watched this video. Donald Trump is dancing with the woman, and she's definitely not Melania Trump. Elon Musk with his money, lots of money. Trump Plaza, Elon Musk eats again. Oh, fuck. Damn. Americans, you have Kim Jong-un as your president. It could be even worse, actually, because he has potentially more power than Kim Jong-un. And sadly, not just in the United States of America. So, fellow Americans, think twice before voting for your next president. And by the way, we hear more and more from Trump's team that Trump is getting ready for the third term. And this was posted by the freaking American president. Guys, 100% Donald Trump has a narcissistic personality disorder and he requires emergency assistance and help. The guy like that could be easily manipulated, and that's what Putin is doing with Donald Trump right now. Trump just fell into the Russian propaganda, and some of his teammates like Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson dig him deeper even more. Stocks of the American companies are going down mainly because of the sanctions, new sanctions announced by the Trump's administration. First of all, 25% against European Union countries, and Trump is still determined to introduce 25% tariffs against Canada and Mexico. Those were postponed before, but Trump here wants to achieve his strange goal in making America, as you can see. America, are you great again? Yeah, this is total madness.
Romanian prosecutors have opened criminal proceedings against ultranationalist politician and 2024 presidential election candidate Călin Georgescu.
Yay, a pro-Russian puppet candidate was arrested in Romania. Absolutely great news for our free world community. And Elon Musk is already shocked. He tweeted, "Oh, what is happening out there in Romania?" Yeah, Romanians do everything great arresting those bastards. So hopefully the guy will have his prison sentence. So guys, as you can see, not a bad news for today after all. Many of those are just awesome. And I'm gonna keep you updated on what is happening in Ukraine, and not only. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.